Well, hello there. You're watching the press preview, a first look at what is on the front pages. In the next half hour, then, we'll see what's making the headlines with the political commentator Adam Boulton and the journalist and broadcaster Carolyn Quinn with us from now until just before midnight. Welcome to both of you. We're going to crack on with the front page of the Financial Times, first of all, which is a rather oblique way of getting into the news that the Gaza deal could be imminent. Certainly, we know Donald Trump is waiting to sign off in a social media post, but the FT is focusing on Trump's Nobel lobbying overshadows the Peace Prize, Adam.
Yeah, I mean, this really is quite remarkable when you consider, how vitally important bringing an end to the conflict in the Middle East is. That it really does seem as if President Trump's desire to have a Nobel Peace Prize, which of course Barack Obama got very early on in his presidency, is actually driving the peace process, because the deadline for the nomination, for the naming of this year's Peace Prize, for which Trump has been nominated, is on Friday. Trump has set the deadline for agreeing with talks, they're saying, according to Sky News tonight, by kind of lunchtime on Friday. And he seriously seems to think he's in with a chance. He's yet again today been talking about these 7 wars, which he says he's ended, which any one of them, in his view, would justify the Peace Prize, although he was saying they'll probably give it to some know-nothing who's done nothing. But he really seems to want it. And genuinely, I think we can say now that, the Nobel Committee have been brought into play, because they may actually be holding this out to Trump to get him to concentrate on leaning on the Israelis and to do a deal. So it's quite remarkable. And an additional complication is that when Trump renamed the Department of Defense in America the Department of War, diplomats did comment that they thought that might actually stymie his chances of getting the Peace Prize, but apparently not.
Well, I suppose, his domestic activities as well may not play into this if the bigger purpose of bringing a fair and just end to the war can be seen through. I mean, obviously, there is a long way to go between the negotiations as they are now and the hopes, that the optimism that something could emerge from them, and seeing a point where all the hostages are released. If that happens within days, that it will mark such a significant moment. I
mean, normally you would get the award after it's been achieved, but they did give Obama the Peace Prize very early on in his presidency, and they have shown in the past, most famously when they gave the Peace Prize to Henry Kissinger and his North Vietnamese opposite number, they have shown that they are prepared to be expedient in the award to encourage good things.
And Donald Trump has not been shy about telling people how much he wants that award, and then he plays it down and then he plays it up again. If we see Donald Trump visiting the Middle East within days of this deal as well, that's again is a very significant moment. So there are so many developments to emerge after these talks, if the optimism is seen through.
Yes, and this is about a story we will do later. They're clamped down on Antifa, talking about the radical left and the danger to America. But during this discussion with Pam Bondi, the Attorney General there, handed a note by the US Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, suggesting very close, we need you to come out and approve a social media post so you can announce effectively the deal first. And the deal will, of course, be just the initial stages about the release of hostages, although we do understand that there's a real difficulty about Hamas finding the hostages who are deceased. The suggestion to a source to Mark Stone a little earlier, there's the note that he reads and looks around, actually, and clearly tries to interrupt Pam Bondi, who's speaking. The suggestion from Hamas officials were that some knew where they were, but those officials have been killed, so they don't know where these bodies are, which is so upsetting for the families of the Israelis.
Very upsetting. And the deal, when it's announced, will include a timetable, and I think it's 72 hours for the exchange of the release of the Palestinian prisoners and the hostages, both living and dead. Of course, Trump, rather extraordinarily, has already sort of extemporised on whether they're living or dead, and we don't know what sort of condition they're going to be in. But again, it's looking, I mean, it has reached the point now with Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner going to the talks, saying they're prepared to meet, we understand, face-to-face with Hamas if necessary, and Trump's behaviour. It will be a major embarrassment, frankly, for the White House if they can't pull this one off.
Absolutely. And one wonders what conversations have been going on behind the scenes between President Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu as well. We had that meeting, didn't we, in the White House where a deal of sorts was declared, but then that seemed to break down a little bit and there were complications to that. Has he now lent on Mr Netanyahu even more, for these developments to emerge? So
they've got other
as well.
Big players have turned up as well. They've got, I think, the
Witkoff,
Qatari Prime Minister, the Turkish intelligence chief. I hadn't realised that many Hamas members and leaders actually live in Turkey as well as Qatar, which was under the approval of America, despite the fact that Israel tried to bomb them, as you know. There was also, the desire of Hamas to get assurances. There's clearly no trust lost between these two. The Palestinians will be running Gaza in the day after, but short term, they are being advised to not object to this international board. Mark Stone reporting, let Trump be the chair of that board, make him feel magnanimous and great. So, there's a lot at play here, a lot of complexity. But this first stage will be, as you said, living hostages, detained Palestinians released. There'll be big questions. That's always sensitive. And, of course, this, suggested withdrawal of Israeli forces.
And when will the aid start to reach the starving people in Gaza, which, of course, is part of the deal as well? So for the hostage families, such relief, the pressure that there's been on Mr Netanyahu from Israelis to say, bring an end to this conflict, and of course the equal pressure to bring relief and aid to the people who've been suffering in Gaza.
Also a question of quite who is going to be released by the Israelis. I mean, because I think there are 280 prisoners serving life sentences, but the figure that's been quoted is 250, which leaves room to exclude some people and focus on whether it's going to include Marwan Barghouti, for example, who is seen as the potential leader of the Palestinians coming from Fatah and also publicly supporting a two-state solution.
And we heard Donald Trump a little earlier, perhaps an hour ago now, I think it was, suggesting that I might go to the Middle East on Sunday, possibly late Saturday. We're just hearing, actually, that he says he will have his routine medical examination on Friday. And the latest line is that Trump is considering going to the Middle East shortly thereafter, so possibly being brought forward by a day. So we will see.
Well, that would be a moment.
Indeed so.
Let's see if it can
But Friday's
happen.
the day whether he gets the Peace Prize. If he gets the Peace Prize, he'll probably perk up his health, I would have thought.
But if he doesn't get the Peace Prize, would he withdraw the offer to go to the Middle East and be involved in the talks?
He'll take to his bed.
Yeah, let's see.
Well, we are waiting for that Truth Social post to be approved by the president, to be released, if he does announce any deal first, or indeed if the news comes from Egypt, or indeed if it takes a little bit longer. So we'll wait and see. But there you can see the note, very close. We need you to approve a Truth Social post so you can be the first, you be the first to announce the deal. I'm slightly paraphrasing it there as I'm reading it backwards, but anyway, we'll wait on that.
You announce deal first, though.
Yes, exactly. We've left what is dominating many of the front pages, which we will come to now, which is Cameron Badenoch firing up the Tories with a pledge to scrap stamp duty. Back with that in just a moment.
I'll tell you on another day on the podcast what that was all about.
Welcome to the world.
Come along for the journey. It'll be fun.
Russia knows our weaknesses, but do you? This is the war game.
There were a number of armed security.
We want to discover, to find out what's really going on.
Everything you need to know about British politics in about 20 minutes.
I actually don't like political drama.
So, where next?
Available wherever you get your podcasts.
A lifeline for millions of people living on both sides of one of the most volatile international borders. It's dams like these that have become inflection points between the two nuclear-armed neighbours, which could potentially lead to water wars in the future. A terror attack has shattered the peace and tranquility of Kashmir. At least 26 people have been killed and as many injured when militants fired upon them. I'm Neville Lazarus and I'm Sky's reporter based in Delhi. The old and young, all weary after being trapped for days as the worst floods have hit Kerala in a century.
3 days we are on a rooftop. They have no food, nothing.
The roads have been inundated. The only way out is to get people by boat. There have been reported deaths and many injuries, several critical. Many families will grapple with the unimaginable loss of one of the worst disasters in India's aviation history. The spiraling violence between two nuclear-armed neighbours that harbour decades of hostility just seems to be getting worse by the day. Garbage dumps like this not only threaten the lives of millions of people, but also pose a deadly consequence on the environment and climate. It is a source of death, decay, disease and pollution for hundreds of thousands of people living in its shadows.
There is so much disease because of this garbage. Sometimes it's so difficult to just breathe.
Companies like these are helping India in its trajectory to be a serious player in space exploration. Over the next 45 days, an estimated 400 million Hindu pilgrims are expected to converge here in Prayagraj on the banks of the holy river Ganga and Yamuna. It's a real kaleidoscope of people from all walks of life.
We've got your Sunday mornings covered. From the front page and the sounds of the streets to the voices of the people who make the major calls and big picture politics beyond Westminster. We'll put you at the heart of our story.
I'm ready. Are you?
Join me, Trevor Phillips, Sunday mornings on Sky News.
I want to start the programme today with a name, a story that I can't get out of my head. The campaign has now started. This is your chance. Tell people. This is the Politics Hub. It's not correct. The tax burden is projected to go up.
No, I am talking about
No, but I'm not. This is my interview. Look, this is ridiculous. No one does care about us. I'm really interested in that. On the Politics Hub, we like to push the boundaries. He's got the majority. The question is, what is he going to do with it?
Well, welcome back. You are watching the press preview with me once again, Adam Boulton and Carolyn Quinn. Welcome back to both of you. So the Tories, Kemi Badenoch, leader's speech today. First of all, quickly, your assessment of how she did, Carolyn.
Well, I think she did very well with the people in the hall. They certainly lapped it up. There were plenty of standing ovations. And generally, the view across all of the papers is that it was a good speech on the day. The question mark remains over whether there will be challenges emerging in the weeks or months to come. Has she done enough to stem the criticism? Has she done enough to bring voters back to the Conservatives? Because, of course, unless the polls show a shift, I think just judging her performance on this day alone is probably not going to be enough. She can't be challenged for the leadership until November the 3rd. That is the first date. And, of course, beyond that, as Adam knows, it's the elections next year in Scotland and in Wales.
And in the London boroughs.
Which will be the real tellers of whether she's managed to make some cut through.
But she had a big retail offering to put the Tories back on the map. Stamp duty, the most hated tax. I don't know if that's inheritance tax or stamp duty, but either way.
I think the basic point is you can tell it's a success because we normally look about at 10 front pages. She's got a lead story on 7 out of the 10, and she's got her picture on the front page in, I think, 5 of them. Now, that is, considering a lot of people are saying, oh, the Tories, they're dead, what's going on? That of itself is a real achievement for Kemi Badenoch. And it has to be said that, you know, following all the party conferences this year, definitely this was the leader's speech of the season.
Yes.
And as you say, it had a significant policy offer in it, a surprise, which she rather enjoyed unfurling, which is this plan to cut stamp duty, to abolish stamp duty if the Tories return to power. And it's a massively unpopular tax. So it was...
it's a really complicated tax, as well as Angela Rayner found out.
Yes, indeed. Well, indeed so. But it is on your main home, not on secondary homes, which would include rental. And certainly Paul Johnson, formerly of the IFS, suggesting this could skew the market even more against renters. But who knows? Daily Express as well. I'll axe stamp duty to help millions, as you said, delivered with a bit of a chuckle, which you quite enjoyed during her speech. Daily Telegraph as well, hugging her husband. She talked about the cabinet being part of her family and then suggested she'd married somebody from her local constituency association.
Interesting, something I think Mrs Thatcher did as well, with Dennis.
But there's been so much commentary on the fact that she allowed some of the personal Kemi Badenoch to show through. You know, people were remarking on the fact that her giggle was... You could hear that throughout. And she delivered the speech with great confidence, because when she's been interviewed, there's been a suggestion that, you know, she's not always comfortable, that while she gives firm answers, sometimes it doesn't always work in her favour. But she was very, very confident up there on the podium. Interesting, the stamp duty announcement, though, because we were talking about the elections being in Wales and Scotland next year, as well as in London. But, of course, this stamp duty announcement won't apply there, because there is no stamp duty in Scotland or Wales anyway. So they might think, well, we haven't had a tax break. I wonder if she has something planned or something up her sleeve to appeal to the voters there.
But the other thing she did, which was very different from what Ed Davey did, and indeed what Keir Starmer did last week, is she barely mentioned you-know-who, Nigel Farage, and we were rather taken with a quotation she chose.
Oh, yeah, the George Bernard Shaw quotation. She said, "Never wrestle with a pig, you both get dirty, and it's the pig that likes it." And the message that she reinforced was, we as Conservatives, she said, have to offer something better.
And Robert Jenrick, you didn't mention you-know-who, Reform UK as well, which was the utter focus of Labour Party conference.
He was in the audience.
It has to be said, he did look at times a bit sick as a pig, as the speech was going.
Yeah, the Times is leading on it. So is the Telegraph there in terms of picture story. But even the lead picture story for The Guardian, which you were a little bit surprised about, certainly. Badenoch builds the case to abolish stamp duty, some way off. But the big question, I suppose, and there's The Guardian front page, has Badenoch done enough to save her party? And meantime, the Eye, asking the question, or should we ask the question, whether this impacts the budget and whether, the idea of wealth taxes or property taxes, which got mooted, I think Labour said it wasn't them, but it got mooted over the summer, whether that changes what Labour will do.
I mean, the November budget, obviously, is the next big date. And does Rachel Reeves respond to this? Has this spooked Rachel Reeves in any way? I mean, it drew my thoughts back to 2007 and the George Osborne announcement on inheritance tax, which spooked Gordon Brown into not calling an election. I don't think this will have such an effect, but nevertheless, it will have to play into the calculations.
I think it's a tactical spanner in the works, because basically we know Rachel Reeves was thinking about, or one of the things she's considering was possibly adjustments in stamp duty, which of course were mocked by Kemi Badenoch, but also possibly bringing in some other property-related taxes as well. So now, whatever she does, unless she abolishes stamp duty, in which case everyone's saying you're copying the Tories, whatever else she's done, it'd be, why haven't you abolished stamp duty?
That's a torpedo policy we saw today, isn't it?
And it is exactly a torpedo policy. And as far as the details go, and they're not in power now, so they've got 4 years to work out what they do about second homes or buy-to-rents or whatever. So I don't think that's necessarily a total disaster for
Well, she was criticised, wasn't she, for waiting so long before coming out with policy, despite the fact that when she took over the leadership, she said, I will take my time. was she pressurised because Reform were bringing out so many policies?
Well, abolition of 20% VAT on private schools, goodbye to inheritance tax on those farms as well. So there was a lot of policy.
Cutting energy bills as well.
Energy bills, too, yes, and net zero, and the European ECHR. But let's go to the Times, shall we? And indeed the Mail, which is Victoria Beckham, alongside her husband Sir David Beckham, at the premiere of a documentary about her life as a designer, but in which she has said that she has had lifelong difficulties with an eating disorder.
Yeah, I mean, what we're seeing is the former posh spice, now Lady Beckham, because remember, he's been knighted, opening up to the public. She's always been rather private, shy person. She declined to get involved with...
Adam, we've only got a couple of seconds. Yes.
And she's doing it because she wants you to buy her makeup.
OK, on that note, see you later.
I'm Dominic Waghorn, Sky's International Affairs Editor, covering a world that seems to be unravelling.
It's not his country, it's ours.
Sky News, the full story first, free wherever you get your news. It's half an hour now past the deadline that Hamas issued, and we've now seen a third barrage of rockets coming in